Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock, let's go over the market, let's talk about what is happening to Tesla stock today, what we can expect moving forward, and all that good stuff. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, again, if you enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts and charts, updates, etc., well, again, I do share my thoughts with members every single day as the market's open, including the actual breakout that Tesla did have today on the 5-minute chart that in terms of how I look for my entries. I talked about how Tesla's getting the potential rejection of the green fibs down here. So yeah, again, check that out, guys. That link is down below. This was actually 6 minutes ago. The one I mentioned, this is 1 hour ago. You can see here, right? I talked about it as we were actually rejecting, as we were at the green Fibonacci's. I was talking about it. Anyways, yeah, all that is just down below, guys, for just $3 a month. All you do is click this link down below and you get access to this page where, again, for $3 a month, you get access to all my Tesla updates, options flow, technical analysis, and also broader market updates, SPY, VIX, etc. $5 includes NVDA, and then of course $7 includes the whole package where you get access to my tier 3 posts, including pretty much every other stock in the market when there's something worth sharing, and of course access to my private Discord. We have a chat room there with members that day trade, share up thoughts, ideas, etc. And every Sunday I do chart requests with members on Discord as well. So we'd love to have you there. But Tesla, with a still pretty nice damn day, right? Obviously nice, just over 4% on the day, closing at 452.32. Which is a good start, right? But there are, as usual, there's always good signs and there's bad signs. So we'll go over, again, I like to look at both sides of the coin, and I'll give you what I do personally believe. Like, this is what I personally believe, and I'll give you reasons as to why I believe that, right? So what even happened today, right? Well, on Friday, we had this pullback, and I mentioned that, the ideal scenario for me to hold on this pullback is going to be between these two Fibonacci's. Worst case scenario, we go to 420, but the ideal scenario is we hold pretty much right in between the 0.5 to the 618 Fibonacci. And that's exactly where we held. And of course, we had a pretty nice fall through today. So that's all done and good to go. And then, of course, today's breakout, you can see, well, we had a nice little 5-minute breakout, right? You can see here, right, where, we had an initial trap once again, got a small rejection, and then we started getting that closure 5-minute candle above on slightly elevated, not slightly, but decently elevated volume. And then, of course, we continued higher from there. So all in all, pretty good stuff. But what happens from here? That is the question. So there's good news and there's bad news. Let's go over the good news first, right? What's the good news? What's the positive, right? Well, I want to delete this for now. The positive is the fact that we are holding above 450, which is good, right? I like the fact that we actually closed above 450. To me, like, one thing that would have been extra, concerning is if we actually, had this push up and then close back below 450. That would have been not great. That definitely would have been a, much more concerning sign. The fact that we, still got a decent rejection from up here with those Fibonacci's, I'll show you in a minute in my more concerning case, if you will, but we still managed to close above 450. So that's good. That is a positive development in my opinion, especially considering the fact that the EMAs are, well, they're still bullish, of course. Well, combine these two factors together in Tesla, it's looking not bad at all, right? It's definitely not looking bad at all. Now, the next step for me is going to be to pretty much break and hold above 2 days high, about 460. I mentioned the low 460s. We ended up touching 460 itself, so we didn't really get into like the low 460s, like, 462 is kind of where I was aiming for. But hey, you know what? Pretty close in my opinion, right? Only off about $2. So, and $2 on a stock that's 460 is really not a whole lot, right? Technically speaking, it could have went up a little bit more, about 0.4% off. So hey, you know what? I'll take it. Now, moving forward, right? What do I want to see next, right? Well, again, this is where we start bringing out the Fibonacci's, right? And I'll explain why I'm using the Fibonacci's in the way that I am, but you can see we rejected right at the green fibs, right? This is the level that we definitely want to break. Not only do we want to break it, we want to hold above that, right? And if Tesla essentially can break pretty much those low 460s, really, and then especially turn that into a support, then I do believe that that's going to be very bullish. And I think, honestly, a retest of at the very least near all-time highs, if not all-time highs, somewhere around here, which is going to be, we'll say the 480-ish region, becomes a very real possibility and a very real target for Tesla to move towards next, right? But that is, of course, well, an if we break 460, if we hold above that, right? Those are ifs. We don't obviously know. We can't say for sure until something presents itself. For instance, today's breakout, 450, right? I mentioned that 5-minute time frame, right? The 5-minute is usually what I look for in terms of getting an entry, right? Nice closure above like this. And then I, of course, enter on a 5-minute, and that's kind of what I look to kind of, zoom in and get that entry on a breakouts, while the daily, 4-hour, etc., maybe even weekly is what I mainly use. Mainly daily, though, is what I use to find the overall setup, 5-minute to find the entry. Now, moving forward, though, what's a concerning case, right? Because, obviously you can probably tell by my, tone that I'm not, because we hit my target of 460 and so far getting a rejection, to me, the stock, personally speaking, again, this is just, I will always speak my honest thoughts, right? What I genuinely believe, I will say it. Whether it's right, whether it's wrong, whether it annoys people, whether it doesn't annoy people, that's irrelevant. It's just what I believe. I am now back to neutral on the stock. Why am I personally back to neutral despite 450 being closed above, or closing above 450, which is a good sign, by the way. I will admit that is a good sign. It's because we did actually touch my my target. I mentioned my target was about the low 460s. We pretty much went right there. We went to what, 460.16, right? Pretty damn close, right? Right into those green Fibonacci's. So the reason I'm a little bit more back to neutral, not bearish, but I'm not necessarily straight bullish yet. I was from the 450 to 460 break, but now that we hit it, well, that level is done. Now I want to see the next level, right? Which is again 460, right? Break above that and hold it, kind of like what we did this morning with 450, but do that about the low 460s. Cool. Now we're talking. Now we can go higher. But the main reason is this. Let me pay your eyes or attention, whatever, to this. When we were, and this is why I have the Fibonacci's in a more kind of quote unquote bearish take. There is a potential of a dead cat here. I feel like I use that word all the time. But there's a chance, right? I can't fully ignore this possibility. I'm not saying it's guaranteed. You never know. Nothing is guaranteed in the market, right? Nothing is 100% sure. And I'm not by no means saying this is 100% a dead cat. But I am entertaining the idea that it could be. And that's something that is worth mentioning, right? So, for instance, I personally believe that we're doing something what we did right around here. Why is that? Well, again, we were running up, making higher highs, higher lows, higher high, and then we made a lower low here, right? This low right here was a lower low technically, right? Because off of this high, arguably this pivot low was that kind of low that was, made to make that high, right? Cool, great, makes sense. And then we made this lower low. This is the part I'm concerned about. This fact that we made this low, despite, holding well, of course, but we still broke these lows here, right? This when we went to 410. That to me is the concern. Now, again, doesn't mean it has to be bearish or has to be a dead cat. Again, I don't, nothing is guaranteed, but there's a lot of signs that I'm seeing right now that I've seen in the past for Tesla stock and in stocks in general, where I am a little bit more reserved in terms of just how much more upside I can see, at least as of right this very moment, especially that 460 was hits, until I get more convinced, such as, again, breaking 460. So because we made that lower low, this to me has a chance to be a lower high, especially around this almost like a fair value gap E looking. I'm not really sure this is you really consider this a fair value gap. I'm not actually 100% sure, to be honest, but kind of looks like it. But nonetheless, right, take the Fibonacci's from that recent swing high that we had up here, pretty much 470 to, well, that low that we made down here. And you can see we rejected at those green Fibonacci's. If you follow my channel, these green Fibs are pretty powerful stuff. We rejected at them pretty much almost to perfection. Like, you really couldn't have asked for a better test of the fibs into rejection. It's perfect. It really is perfect. So that's number one, why I'm a little bit more concerned. I want to make that very clear. Number two, we have the MACD. The daily MACD is, despite on this push up, yeah, it's making a higher low, which is fine, but it is still red. It is still red, and it's fairly elevated. I wouldn't say it's extremely elevated like it was back here, though. That was one of the most elevated we've ever seen ever in the stock. But you can see, based on the historical performance of the MACD, we're around here. And, based on historical performances, even where we are right this very moment, it's pretty elevated. Right now, it's not the peaks, the crazy ones, but it's pretty up there, right? It's pretty up there. So what I like to use the MACD for, and this is the main thing I like to use the MACD for, is when a stock is trying to break out, but the MACD is extremely, or at least quite elevated, which in this case it is, especially when it's red like this, I'm a little bit less convinced, and I do believe that there is a chance that this pop is a fake pop. Let me show you two other stocks very quickly, just to illustrate my example, to kind of explain why I believe this. EOSE. Look at this. This is a stock that looked like it was going to break out, and it arguably was, right? Nice little bull flag setting up, nice little breakout, arguably on Friday, into follow through today, and it did get the follow through. It did, right? It absolutely got some follow through, but very lackluster into a sharp rejection. Why? Look where the MACD was. Look how high this is, right? Again, just an example and to illustrate the point of what I like to look for, in a MACD. Another example that I can show you was, I think it was Grab. Where's Grab? Here we go. This is a perfect example too. I'm just illustrating the point so that, I'm not talking out of my ass, right? But again, whether you believe me or not is irrelevant to me. But I like to explain my thought process to, so people understand at least. Ignore all these candles here. I want to ignore. Actually, no, ignore, not those candles, ignore here. Ignore like around here. We don't care about that. Look at these candles right here, right? What happened? Same idea, right? We had a nice push up, pretty much a bull flag, and it broke out. It did break out. It absolutely broke out, and it absolutely went higher, kind of like Tesla's doing right now, right? Absolutely. But why was this breakout ended up getting substantially not only rejected, but also made a lower low, Why did this breakout off of this massive bull flag not just go way higher right away? MACD, guys, the MACD, where were we right here? You can see also pretty darn elevated, right? One of the highest levels it's ever been. And the MACD was also pretty much red barely struggling to stay green, but it was red, especially on the breakouts. So again, I see these kind of factors, and this is the main thing I use the MACD for, that or divergences, but mainly this, just to see how elevated something is or isn't, with how much more room the stock really has left to run. And you can see that example is also, in my opinion, a pretty good example. Now, again, it doesn't mean it has to for sure play out as a guaranteed thing to happen here for Tesla stock, but Tesla has done this as well. Let's take a look. Back when we had this massive rally back here, you can see massive rally, right? And then we had a massive fall, and then we had a massive rally. A lot of people got very bullish here. This was back when the robotaxi launch happened or something like that. Same thing happened, right? Massive push up. I think this was also right into those green Fibonacci's. Yes, it was absolutely to perfection, right into the green Fibs. And then MACD also was doing the exact same thing. It was green on this push up here, green on the push up here. But then as we had this, what was essentially a dead cat and then a pretty decent rejection, it was red, which is doing the exact same thing. Or the opposite is true as well. Let's take a look at pretty much the opposite scenario. We're back here, Tesla stock, right? Nice push up over here. And then look at this, massive rejection lower, but the MACD stayed green the whole time. And then we pushed up higher. So this push to the downside in this case was a bear trap because the MACD was not buying that. It was still green and we went higher. And it was also not elevated by any means whatsoever. In fact, it was actually in the opposite end of the spectrum. It was pretty de-elevated, I guess. I don't know. Again, I'm just trying to illustrate this example so you guys understand what I'm trying to say. That's why I'm not bearish. I definitely don't want to say bearish, but I'm not as bullish right now, mainly because we already hit my initial target of 460. Now I need to see, where do we go next? Do we lose 450? If we start losing 450, start losing daily candles below and closing below 450, or like, nicely below 450, like 47, things like that. That's a concern. This could be a problem. But if we continue holding 450 and especially break and close above, the low 460s, that's thumbs up. That could be a positive development. And that's when we can start talking about continuation even higher. And the last thing I want to talk about is the 4-hour SMI. We are on the upper end of the spectrum here on the 4-hour SMI. Every time we've been up towards the upper end of the spectrum, unless Tesla is in a parabolic rally or parabolic fall, this thing is pretty accurate. And right now, we're pretty much towards the upper end of the spectrum, which also makes me question just how much more room is there really to the upside here, at least as of this very moment. Which again, just tells me the fact that maybe we're not ready to go substantially higher here just yet. So, all these factors put together means the fact that I like the fact that we're holding 450. I like the fact that we're above it, but I'm not fully buying this move now, especially since we hit my 460 target, until I see strength above this level again. And then I'll be convinced that the bulls do want to send this one higher to about the 480s. But until I see that, there is a good chance that maybe we get a rejection and come back down and start chopping around this vicinity again. Maybe we even just chop around this vicinity again. I just simply do not know, right? I don't know for sure. But I do question this potential strength, at least as of this current moment, until I see even better follow through. Again, strictly because we hit my target. That's the only reason, mainly because we hit the target of those green Fibonacci. So that's kind of how I wanted to explain it. And that's sort of what I'm personally seeing right now. So let's continue monitoring this, guys. Let's continue seeing how this plays out. Again, this is another week where we're starting well above the weekly green Fibs as well. But every single time we've done that, we've gotten rejected and pretty much closed at or below these green Fibs. Will this week be any different? I mean, let's see, guys. Let's see, right? We don't know for sure. But that's kind of how I see it right now. And I'm not fully buying this move personally right now until I see stronger confirmation, or I guess some stronger, maybe the MACD starts turning back to bullish. Maybe the 4-hour SMI gets a cool off while we chop around this general vicinity, or we just straight up break 460 and start holding it as support. Whichever one of those happens, then I'll start, getting a bit more convinced. But until then, let's see. Again, I'm not bearish, but I'm not particularly very bullish, right? I'm just leaning bullish is the best way to explain it. Hopefully that makes sense. I just wanted to make a really good explanation as to why I believe what I personally believe and what I see. And yeah, hopefully, we'll see from here, guys. We'll see from here, right? So anyways, options flow on the other hand, very bullish throughout the entire day. Towards the end of the day, you can see here some bears did start coming in. For instance, we had 3.5 million put that came in for 450 strike for the 7th of November. But then in the last 5 minutes of the day, some bulls did come in with nice 460s, 480s, 465s, even a 500 strike for this week and next week as well. So the bulls are arguably winning, definitely, the options flow. But do they have the strength to really follow this higher? Or is this just going to be a bull trap with those green Fibs? That's the question. And unfortunately, I don't have the answer to it right now until I see essentially levels broken, guys. That's just how it works. Levels need to get broken in order to unlock the next potential. So until that happens, let's see. But structurally, I do have those concerns, let's say, especially with a lot of reported earnings coming out today for massive amounts of Mag 7 stocks. we have a big week, and we have, I think, FOMC or the Fed this week as well. Anyways, thanks for watching. Long video. Really want to explain my thought process just so you may, at least you understand what I'm thinking. And I could be wrong. But that's just what I believe. Let's see. Thanks for watching. Peace.